And we are live. Welcome back or welcome to the Truth Comes to Light podcast, where everything done in the dark is going to come to light. Every single detail in this world that is done in the dark is going to come to light. I am your host, Jay Colvin, and welcome to the show. For those of y'all that are new, on the Truth Comes to Light podcast, we talk about news from all over the world, the music industry, and more. Please be sure to check out my previous podcast episodes on the channel, and also be sure to tune in to my Real Spill Wednesdays. On Real Spill Wednesdays, y'all, we talk about life topics and motivational quotes. Please be sure to check out my previous Real Spill Wednesdays on the channel with technology, how it could be in the next couple of years, decades, how life is real with the whole Bronny James incident, just to name a few. So please, if you're interested in any of those, please be sure to check out the full Real Spill Wednesdays on the channel. Also, be sure to follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at The Truth Comes to Light podcast, because the things that I do post on one of those sites could be like a little foreshadow on what's next for my next podcast episode. And you can also stay in contact with me, and we can go back and forth on things that are happening in the world, or give me things to talk about for my Real Spill Wednesdays if y'all have things for me to want to talk about to y'all. But if y'all don't subscribe, you wouldn't even know any of the things that could potentially be going on and what I have to say. So please be sure to follow all three platforms. Also, be sure to subscribe, like the video, comment, turn on post notifications, so that way you get the latest updates on when I post a Real Spill Wednesday or a podcast episode. Y'all, thank y'all for each and every time that y'all come and watch me say what I have to say. This is the 100 video special. Give a round of applause. Like just for me, like the fact that I just been grinding, been trying so hard for 2 months. We've started this in July. If I'm not mistaken, we started this in July 11th. And now 2 months have passed, coming up on 3 months. And now I'm almost over 100 videos, with this podcast episode being the 100 video mark. I'm really thankful for each and every one of y'all that have tuned in, subscribed to the channel, voiced y'all's opinion, liked the video, everything that y'all could possibly have done to me and watching my videos. I really appreciate each and every one of y'all from the bottom the bottom of my heart. I don't know why I couldn't say nothing right there, but the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate each and every one of y'all, for real. And I'm gonna keep on coming with the content, and y'all just keep on coming with the feedback, viewing, liking, commenting. Keep on subscribing to the channel. Keep on turning on post notifications, so that way you get the latest updates, like I said. And I appreciate each and every one of y'all from the bottom of my heart. And we're going to keep on grinding, and we're going to keep on coming, because everything that's done in the dark is going to come to light. This is something small. This whole setup, this is not going to be the finished product. I'm going to have more posters. I might have a better room. I'm going to have better everything. But all of this work that's done in the dark, for the people that don't know me, is going to become something that's in the light, because my whole platform, like I told y'all, is I want to have a voice. I want y'all to have voices. So I feel like this platform, the Truth Comes to Light podcast, is me expressing my voice and my opinion on certain things that are happening in the world, and certain life topics and motivation quotes that I do for my real spills and for y'all to see. So I really appreciate each and every one of y'all just listening to my voice, having y'all opinions. It can be good opinions, it can be bad opinions, but the fact that y'all are just coming to support me and watch my videos, like, I really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. So I have a special podcast episode for y'all. So with that in mind, let's get straight into it. So the biggest topic of the weekend, and I'm going to get straight into it. Drake just dropped For All the Dogs. It was projected to sell over 400K. I think it's going to sell 500K first week. He actually pushed back the date to October 7th, that Friday at 6 a.m. I was expecting it to come out at midnight, but he was like, nah, he's going to drop it at 6 a.m. So the 23 track album consisted of features such as Tizo Touchdown, 21 Savage, SZA Twice, Yeats, J. Cole, Bad Bunny, and a bunch of more artists. Now, the album, my personal top 5 songs on here, obviously I believe that First Person Shooter is the best song on the album with J. Cole, and that song is projected to be number 1. And if it does go number 1, this will be Drake's 13th time in which a solo song has entered the number 1 spot on billboards, which he will be tied with Michael Jackson on having the most solo entry number 1 songs in history, which is absolutely crazy for Drake, because Drake has done so much, and the fact that he is still at the top of the game ever since he literally came up, ever since his first album, Thank Me Now. Like, it was just crazy, the fact that he's still on top of the game, still following these trends that are coming out, these new artists that are coming out, and he's still on top of each and every rapper that's in the game, and he's just continuing to stay consistent. So like I said, my top 5 songs is First Person Shooter with J. Cole, I Don't Give a F by Yeet, which is actually a good song. That song might end up, for sure is going to be in the top 10, but that song might eclipse First Person Shooter with him and J. Cole, because that song has been getting a lot of plays. And shout out to Yeet. Yeet then came up, he was literally just on Minions not too long ago, and now he's getting a song with Drake, and that song actually did very, very well. Then my third favorite song on that album was the lead single on that album, 8 a.m. in Charlotte. Fourth is What Will Pluto Do? And fifth was Away From Home. And my personal opinion on this album, obviously, any time someone says that a Drake album is good, no one has said that a Drake album was a bad album. So that's really not saying much. But I feel like this album, yes, it's only came out for 3 days. And that's why I don't like reviewing albums the moment that it does come out, because it doesn't give you enough time to process and fully review the album. It's 23 tracks. There's not enough time for you to review all 23 songs and give your opinion. You got to keep on listening to the album, because there might be a song that you might not like, and now the song that you didn't like at first, now it becomes one of your favorite songs on the album. So I decided to wait a couple of days, give it a couple of listens, see what I like, see what I don't like. So like I said, the Drake album is pretty good, but that's not saying enough. Me personally, I honestly feel like this is one of Drake's lower albums. And here's the thing. You have to look at this Drake album. You have to look at For All the Dogs. Think of it. The main problem with Drake's album, For All the Dogs, you got to think of it like a research paper or any type of paper that you write. You have to have a good intro and you have to have a good outro in any type of album that you do make. If you don't have a good intro song and a good outro song, it's going to feel as though that the album is just thrown together. And I feel as though with this album, Virginia Beach and Polar Opposites, those songs are like subpar Drake. When you compare the intro and outros for classic albums that Drake has came out with Certified Lover Boy, Champagne Poetry, and The Remorse, when you have Take Care, when you have Over My Dead Body and Hate Sleeping Alone, when you have If You're Reading This Is Too Late with Legends and 6 p.m. in New York, when you have Views with Keep the Family Close and Fire and Desire, when you have More Life with Free Smoke and Do Not Disturb. Those are classic albums, and what makes them classic is the fact that you have good intro song and a good outro song. So then all you have to do is just have these songs in the middle that are good, that matches the flow of the whole album. Versus if you have a subpar album with a mediocre, bad, whatever you want to call the intro, Virginia Beach, It's a good song, but it's not quality classic Drake intro type song. Polar Opposites, same thing. It's a good song, but it's not classic Drake outro song. So now you have an album to where now it just feels like the songs are thrown together. And I feel like that was the main thing, and it was kind of disappointing because Drake said that this album was more so going to be the old Drake. And I actually listened to Tried Our Best when it was a leak, and I thought that that was going to be the flow that he was going to have for the entire album. I thought it was just going to be that slow Drake, that old Drake that we were actually getting, but it was actually kind of misleading. That song turned out to be the boring part of the album. It actually turned out to be the boring part of the album, and it was just like it didn't feel like the song fit. And that's what happens when you have a bad intro and a bad outro. And I'm not saying bad as if the songs itself are bad, but I'm saying it in regards to Drake's standards and what Drake has put out over the years, that where it ranks up is not towards the top. So now you have a bunch of songs that are thrown in together just to be thrown in. More Life was kind of the same thing, but the difference between More Life and For All the Dogs is More Life had a very good intro and outro. You still have Do Not Disturb that's still played on TikTok. So even if the theme of the album, the songs are just thrown together, there was so many hard songs in More Life, like Portland, like Teenage Fever, like Passion Fruit, like Lose You. You have all these songs that are thrown in together, but since you have a good intro and since you have a good outro, all the songs that are thrown in together, now it feels more like it fits in the album. Versus when you have Virginia Beach and Polar Opposites, then you have songs like Rich Baby Daddy with Sexy Red and SZA. Then you have Tried Our Best. It doesn't feel like it's put together. It just feels like it's a bunch of just songs that are thrown together. With the I Don't Give a F song with Yeet, that was Yeet's song in my opinion. Yeet was the forefront of that song. Drake didn't feel as though that he fit on the song. Not saying that his verse wasn't bad. A Drake verse is never just bad, but it's never just that classic Drake that we're really just looking for. And where he ranks up with all of these artists in the industry, and not even just in this industry, but in history, you have to hold Drake to a certain standard in regards to when he drops an album. And with this album, it's obviously going to sell way more than 450K. It's probably going to sell closer to 500, probably where Travis Scott was. And this is going to be the most that he has sold since Certified Lover Boy, which sold 613K. But then he had dropped Honestly Nevermind, and that album wasn't even that good to me because, I mean, obviously he was trying something. It was a dance album, but that wasn't Drake's style to me personally. So with him dropping that, and then he comes back and drops Her Loss with 21 Savage, which turned out to be a very good album. You would think that with him saying on tour that he's bringing back the old Drake, people are going to compare old Drake to old albums that he came out. Your Thank Me Later, your Views, your Take Care, your Nothing Was the Same, all of these albums. When Drake said that we were going to get the old Drake, he said on tour we was going to get the old Drake, people are going to compare old Drake to his older albums. So when he drops For All the Dogs, obviously he's going to be compared to his more classic albums. If You're Reading This, It's Too Late, Take Care, Thank Me Later, all of these albums, Nothing Was the Same. You're going to be compared to your older albums, and if this album For All the Dogs doesn't even compete, which in my opinion it doesn't, they're going to hold you to that accountability, one, because of that, and two, because you say that we have Drake as one of these best artists in the generation, and we put him against people like Kanye, and in the top 10 artists of all time. So when you have it like that and your standards are high each and every time that you do drop an album, you're going to be held to that high standard because we know what prime Drake can give us. We know what Drake can give us at any given point in time. So with that in mind, J. Cole was obviously, in my opinion, the best feature. People will probably say that song will get overplayed, which I can see it does get overplayed and it will be overrated. But nonetheless, them two, for the first time, they've came together in over a decade. They finally dropped a song, First Person Shooter, and it did not disappoint. J. Cole was talking about the diss with YB and how it wasn't a diss with YB, and he still wants to get a feature with YB. You can't trust anything that's on the media. Like, he was basically addressing the issue that people on the media was basically putting out about the beef between J. Cole and NBA Youngboy. And he was just addressing that, and J. Cole's just good at what he does. You can't take anything for granted in regards to J. Cole. He's a good lyricist, good rapper, just a good artist, period. My second favorite feature, obviously, I'll say Yeet. The fact that, in my opinion, he's like the second, like, known person, known rapper on the album behind, in my opinion, Tizo Touchdown, because Tizo Touchdown, who's been having a phenomenal year, he mainly got that attention once he got on that album with Utopia, which we will be comparing For All the Dogs and Travis Scott's album Utopia here in a little bit. But going back to what I said about Yee, he's like the second least known person on this album. So the fact that he comes and he delivers a hard verse, now people are going to check out his music. And I just saw earlier before I had started recording that Yeet is now up to 16.9 million monthly listeners on Spotify. So good for Yeet. Third person that I will say is SZA. SZA is obviously having a phenomenal year. She just dropped her album last year, at the end of last year, and she just keeps on carrying that momentum all the way until Travis Scott's album with Utopia and Telekinesis, and then she comes on For All the Dogs, drops the lead single Slime You Out, and then comes back and gets on Rich Baby Daddy. Even though Sexy Red, in my opinion, was the worst feature on the album, Drake and SZA basically saved that song, and it basically made Sexy Red's part tolerable. But Sexy Red, in my opinion, is the worst feature on that song, worst feature on the album. But SZA nonetheless did her thing on that album. For one, getting a number one song with Slime You Out being the lead single, along with 8 a.m. in Charlotte, which Drake had dropped. And then she comes back, which we didn't expect her to, and gets on Rich Baby Daddy with Drake and Sexy Red and delivers another verse. So good for SZA. The next person that I will say is P&D Party Next Door. On Members Only, he had a pretty good verse. Everyone that I'm going to basically rank had pretty good verses. I just feel like Drake, in regards to his verse and the songs, like, the songs are more so cool, but there wasn't songs to where, like, oh, this is a classic Drake song versus on his other albums. It's just the whole thing with Nothing Was the Same, If You're Reading This Is Too Late, Views, Take Care. There's classic songs from that album that you can just take, and years from now, you can go back and listen to it. With this, it's like there may be some songs, but in regards to them being just full-on classics, I don't think this is the album that'll give you the full-on classics. So Tizo Touchdown did good. Lil Yachty did good on Another Late Night song. 21 Savage did okay, but I feel like the problem with 21 Savage is the fact that Drake and 21 Savage, I feel as though they did too many songs. They already have a collab album. And I feel like it's starting to get to the point to where that song was more just like a throwaway. And I feel as though, and I really don't want this to happen, 21 Savage just might start to get in that category with Lil Baby and Roddy Ricch in regards to repetitiveness and not coming back with something new. which I do not want to see. But I wouldn't be surprised if people will start to put Lil Baby and 21 Savage in that same category, as well as Roddy Ricch, in regards to them being repetitive. So I feel like that song was more so a throwaway, and that song is hard. The first half of that song is hard, and I feel as though that's the problem with like some Drake songs, like On Her Loss, Hours in Silence. That song has the potential to be a top at least 20 song, but he decided to change the beat. With this song, Calling For You, he changed the beat for 21 Savage, and I feel as though it kind of just messed up the song. Versus if you would have kept that beginning beat, it would have been way better. Bad Bunny, obviously, he's, Latino. He basically ain't do bad. And obviously the worst feature, should I say, is Sexy Red. I feel as though that there's no question about that. I literally skipped that song. When I first played that song, it kind of threw me off. I had to skip the song. But then I had replayed it, and the song's not that bad because of the simple fact that Drake and SZA did so good in their verses that it kind of makes Sexy Red's part more tolerable. So, with that in mind, I feel as though this album is going to be a good album for this year, but if we want to rank it amongst Drake albums, which I will get to just here in a little bit, I don't think it's going to rank that good off of the first couple of listens that I have. There's so many classic albums. So many classic albums that Drake has in his catalog, and I just feel like this album alone, it's a good album for this year, but when you want to compare it to the all-time great albums that he has in his discography and his catalog, it just doesn't compare. And like I said earlier, the biggest problem with this album is the intro and the outro. When your intro and your outro is subpar and it's good, but it doesn't compare to your classic albums like your Take Care with Over My Dead Body and Hate Sleeping Alone, like your More Life with Free Smoke and Do Not Disturb, like your Certified Lover Boy with Champagne Poetry and The Remorse, like If You're Reading This Is Too Late with Legend and 6 p.m. in New York. And then you have obviously just Views and Keep the Family Close, Fire and Desire. Hotline Bling was the last song on that album. It's your intros and your outro. If they're good and they're solid, then it's going to mesh everything together. But if you have subpar intro and a subpar outro, or if you have just one of them, it's kind of hard to just make the album better in regards to making it a classic album instead of making it feel as though you're just throwing all the songs in together. And that's what I feel like is the biggest problem with For All the Dogs. Not saying that it's a bad album. No Drake album, in my opinion, is a bad album. But if you want to have that album, For All the Dogs, towards the top of your list in regards to it being a classic album in Drake's discography, all of the albums that are in his top 5, his top 3, they all have good intros and good outros. Nothing Was the Same, Tuscan Leather, Pound Cake, All Me, like intros and outros are good. And like I said earlier, all of the other albums, they're good intros and good outros. So this album isn't a bad album at all. Now, I said earlier, we're going to compare the For All the Dogs album to Travis Scott's Utopia album. And I said this in my podcast, my earlier podcast episodes. I said that Travis Scott's album Utopia was going to be better than For All the Dogs. But I did say that Drake could be that artist because at the time, there was no rapper that had the number 1 spot. That whole year, it's been over a year since a rapper was number 1 on Billboards. And obviously, Doja Cat got Paint the Town Red And then Drake finally got the number one song with Slime You Out. So Travis Scott couldn't get it, but I did say that Travis Scott's Utopia album was going to be better than For All the Dogs. And it just happens, in my opinion, to still be true. I still feel as though that Utopia is still a better album, and we're going to just compare just song for song. Like, I feel as though the first four songs, you have Virginia Beach versus Hyena. I feel as though Hyena is better. I feel as though Thank God is better than Amen. I still feel as though My Eyes is still better than Calling For You. We'll pull it up right here. No, My Eyes is actually going up against Fear of Heights. I think that is better than Fear of Heights, and I feel as though Modern Jam is better than Calling For You because 21 Savage messed up the song. So right then and there, the first four songs on Utopia is just better. Then it has songs like Schizo. Then it has Telekinesis. Like, it has just good songs. It has I Know. It has Meltdown with Drake. It has songs just there. And I feel as though that it's still a better album. It's still getting played versus this album. People were getting on Drake because the album was mid. It was more people that were getting on Drake than it is with Travis Scott. And this is Travis Scott's, in my opinion, worst album. But if we just compare it, I just feel as though it's better. Like I said, My Eyes, Hyena, Thank God, Modern Jam, I Know. It's just song for song. Even though this Drake album has 23 songs, it still doesn't just match up against Travis Scott's album. And I feel as though Travis Scott's album is just a better album than For All the Dogs. But that doesn't mean to say that Drake's album is bad. Drake doesn't have a bad album. It's just when you compare it against Travis Scott's album, who sold 500K with bundles and without bundles. Obviously, Drake's not selling bundles. He's not selling merch. He's not selling vinyls. He's not doing all of that. But nonetheless, it's still 500K. So it's still the 500K, and people are still listening to the Travis Scott album. Not saying that people aren't going to listen to this Drake album, but I feel as though that Travis Scott did a better job at his album, making his album and the theme of the album, and it goes together more than For All the Dogs. Now, I'm going to rank where For All the Dogs matches up against his whole discography, should I say. I want to see where it ranks up, and I think I have probably the best list. And I just had to go based off of classic albums, the time, and just the songs that it has. So this is me ranking all of Drake's discography, all of his albums, everything. Now, see, I didn't count What a Time to Be Alive. I didn't count Her Loss because those are collab albums. We're just talking about straight Drake albums. So this is my list. So the best album, in my opinion, I have Views. Number 2, I have Take Care. Number 3, I have If You're Reading This Is Too Late. Number 4, I have Nothing Was the Same. Number 5, I have Thank Me Later. Number 6, I have Scorpion. Number 7, I have More Life. Number 8, I have Certified Lover Boy. Number 9, I have So Far Gone. Number 10, I have For All the Dogs. Number 11, I have Dark Lane Demo Tapes. And number 12, I have Honestly Nevermind. So based off this album only being out for a couple of days, I have it automatically better than Honestly Nevermind and Dark Lane Demo Tapes. Obviously, it's not better than Certified Lover Boy. Certified Lover Boy sold 613K. Obviously, it sold way more than what it is For All the Dogs. One, because it was the whole Kanye beef that was going on. But overall, as an album, has a better intro, has a better outro, and it has better songs in there. That's just number 1. Views is obviously better. It's a classic album, has way better songs. Hotline Bling, Too Good, Controller, Keep the Family Close, You With Me, 9, Feel No Ways, Resting Road Flows, Redemption. It has so many classic songs on that album. Take Care, obviously, Over My Dead Body, Headlines. It just has just so many songs. The Motto, The Ride, all these songs on Take Care. Every single one of those songs, and I know I didn't name all of those songs, but you can get the idea. There's so many classic songs on that album. Underground Kings is just so many good songs on their album. If you're reading this, it's too late. One of his best mixtapes. One of his best mixtapes with 10 Bands, Legend, Six God, Energy, Know Yourself, 6 p.m. in New York, Preach with Party Next Door. It's so many good songs on that album. I just can't put it over that. Scorpion, even though I feel as though Scorpion to me is the least listened album in my opinion, but you have to respect the songs that it does have with Sandra's Road, God's Plan, Nonstop, Survival, March 14th, Nice for What. It's so many songs on that album. So it's just, even though I feel as though I listen to it the least and I really don't go back to that album, you have to respect the songs that it does have. And that's fact. So I just can't put it over that album. I can't put it over Thank Me Later. Just can't. I just can't. Fireworks. It's just with Alicia Keys, it has so many songs on there. Find Your Love Over. So many songs on there. Light Up with Jay-Z. Fancy with T.I. Swiss Beats is songs on there. Thank Me Now is just a good album. More Life, how I was saying earlier, More Life has a better intro, a way better intro song in Freak Smoke versus Virginia Beach, and a way better outro song with Do Not Disturb versus Polar Opposites. Then it has Portland, Passion Fruit, Teenage Fever, has so many songs on that album. Lose You is just so many songs on that album. Better songs, better classics than For All the Dogs. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with For All the Dogs not having classic songs. But if we want to rank that album being one of his best albums, you have to match it up against these albums that have classics. You just have to. One of his better albums. You have to just go song for song and just go from there. So I feel as though this is personally opinionated. Obviously, this is his best discography. Now, I want to show y'all, for those of y'all that have not seen the whole situation with Drake and Joe Budden, I want y'all to listen to what Joe Budden had to say about his album and reacting to the album and basically Drake's influence. I just want y'all to listen to it. And I'm going to put it on the screen for y'all.
This is like Yachty rapping. This is like he rapping for the children. And that's my, yo dog, I had to look up how old this nigga was when I finished listening to the album. Mm-hmm. You are 36. Your birthday is in 20 days. I Googled that too. You will be 37 years old. Get the fuck away from some of these younger niggas and stop fucking these 25-year-olds. I'm listening to the album. The 25-year-old, you're a 37-year-old billionaire. But that's what I'm loving about Cole. Like, my shit is happening in reverse. Like, with Cole, he used to rap about kid shit. I'm a grown-ass, like, real Jersey City nigga. I don't want to hear how you lost your fucking virginity. And then he started to grow up. Mm-hmm. And then the rapping sounded like an adult rapping. Mm-hmm. I want to hear adult Drake rapping for adult people.
No, you're not going to hear that.
That's my issue with him.
Okay, so Drake responded to Joe Budden, and he was like, you have failed at music. You left it behind to do what you're doing in this clip, because this is what actually pays the bills. For any artist watching, just remember, you are watching a failure give their opinion on the idea of a recipe for success. A quitter gives their opinion on how to achieve longevity. You switch careers because the things that popped into your brain had broke your living check to check, and raps you write had 450 men showing up to your shows in dusty jeans to screw up your to screw up their music. 29 and pretending you are the GOAT. Please, to any artist that's doing what they feel is right, don't let these opinions affect your mindset after the fact. This guy is the poster child of frustration and surrendering. You retired and we never hung up your jersey. We don't even remember your number. We know you're doing this. You withdrew from rap not because you accomplished all you need to, it's because it wasn't working for you. I never want anybody in this generation to think that the whole everybody's entitled to their opinion is a real thing. This is a man projecting his own self-hate and the fact I did and continue to do everything he wanted to do for himself. If you need to put it in simpler terms, I own a 676. I said 676. 767. He owns a modest house in the 973 and flies first class on special occasions. So here's my whole thing on what Joe Budden said. First off, no one really knows who Joe Budden is, bro. Especially rapping. I don't even know one song. I literally had to scroll and figure out what songs that Joe Budden has. And he only has the one Pump It Up song. You can't compare your career to basically just someone who has a bigger catalog, more people listen to him. And so what if Drake is 37 years old? When you're that age, obviously you want to influence your kids with your music. If you influence your kids, their parents are going to hear the music, and it's just going to be a full circle effect. They're going to listen to the song too. So the fact that Drake is influencing these kids and he's in the game for almost 20 plus years, that's actually incredible. It's not a bad thing that he's influencing these kids and kids are listening to him, and it's not for 37, 38-year-olds. Not everything is going to attract everybody. You can be a rapper and only have songs that are strictly made for kids. You can be a rapper that only makes songs that are strictly for adults. It just all comes with time. You can make songs that are originally for kids, and then once they grow up, their songs are influenced to the kids below them. So it just all comes just full circle. You want to, as your artist, you want to have your music influence the kids. You want kids to listen to your music because the kids are going to go back to their parents and they're going to show the parents their song and listen to the song around their parents. And if the parents like it, they're going to be like, who is this person? Well, if it's Drake, now Drake then got the parents to listen to the song. And with his career clearly not going the way that it should with him in music, and he's just talking about people and his influence, and he should be influencing people his age. You can't talk about someone influencing a certain age when that's what you were supposed to do as a whole artist when you were rapping, and now you had a very short career and now you're on a podcast. It ain't nothing personal, but that's the reality of it. So what if Drake is music is so-called influencing the kids and he only makes songs for the kids? Okay, that can be cool, but the kids can go and bring it to the parents, and the parents listen to the song and be like, what's that song? That song is hard. And now the song is with the parents, and the parents listen to that song and they think that it's hard. Now that's a download. Now more people are listening to him. Obviously it doesn't make sense. You really think all the views that Drake has on his song are strictly kids? Most of them are kids, but I'm pretty sure there's a percent that are parents that still listen to Drake. Versus Joe Budden. Joe Budden doesn't even have one song, that Pump It Up song. Other than that, he don't have nothing, and he had a very short career. So Drake is 100% right. Obviously, he's on a podcast, so he's going to have his own opinion. Not saying that he's not going to have his own opinion on the album. Okay, cool. But if you're a rapper and your career didn't go the way that it was supposed to go or how you wanted it to go, you can't go and talk about another rapper and saying that he only influences another group. or a small percentage of a group and it just basically hate on what he's doing. Because I'm pretty sure that you couldn't do that, and clearly Joe Budden couldn't do that. Clearly Joe Budden couldn't influence a whole group. Because we don't even think about Joe Budden as a rapper. When we first think of Joe Budden, people don't even know who Joe Budden is. More people know who Drake is versus Joe Budden. And the people that do know Joe Budden basically off his podcast, not as a artist. No one will never know who Joe Budden is as an artist, as far as I'm concerned. Who's coming out that womb, they're not finna be, ain't no parent finna be like, let's listen to this Joe Budden. Don't no one do that. But Drake got these kids coming out the womb listening to him because he's been in the game for so long. He's been in the game for almost 20 plus years. He's getting that influence. And you want to know who's passing down that influence? The parents. And the parents are older. So it's just a full circle effect on who is listening to Drake. Because if that wasn't the case, Drake wouldn't be where he is now in regards to people that are listening to his music. It's a whole circle effect. The kids bring it to the parents, and the parents are going to keep on bringing it to the kids. It's a full circle. If they like the song, then it's just a full circle. Drake has so many songs. And how many songs does Joe Budden have last time I'm concerned? One. And I'm just giving him one. Because Pump It Up, I guess. But people don't know Joe Budden as no rapper. They know him because of podcasting. And people, I'm pretty sure, still don't know who Joe Budden is. Last time I checked, people know who Drake is. Everybody know who Drake is. So you can't go and hate on someone that's just doing better because he only influences a certain group, when that certain group is bringing it to the older group, and it's just a full circle effect. And that's exactly what it is. So Drake handled it very much appropriately towards him. Very much appropriately towards him. Overall, what I would say is, do I think that this album is better than Utopia? No. I still don't think that it's better than Utopia. I'm going to continue to give it more listens. Y'all continue to give it more listens. Keep in mind that Drake is still going to be that person. Just keep that in mind. Drake is not falling off. Will never fall off until he retires. So it's just going to be just Drake. So with that in mind, like I said, my top 5 songs: First Person Shooter, I Don't Give a F with Ye, 8 a.m. in Charlotte, What Would Pluto Do, and Away From Home, with my honorable mention being 769 Santa. So those are my top songs. Please leave down below what y'all believe the top songs are for you, y'all top 5 songs. So, yeah, with that in mind, let's move on. Woo, that was a lot, y'all. But we're going to move on to someone that is dropping an album this week, this Friday. Offset, dropping his new album, Set It Off. He just dropped the soundtrack for it. Let me show y'all. Let me see if I can find it. It's a 21-track sound track with features such as Travis Scott, Don Toliver, Future, Cardi B twice, which he already dropped the lead single, Jealousy, and then he dropped another song, just Offset himself, Fan. And then he has Cardi B on another song. He has Young Nudy on there, and he has Lotto on that song, on another song, should I say. And those are all the features that he does have on the album. Like I said, it's a 21-track album. Me personally, I honestly don't know how he's going to attack this album. You see with Quavo, ever since Takeoff had died, he had dropped Rocket Power, and that album was strictly dedicated to Takeoff because obviously in the title, it's clear cut. Rocket, Takeoff, that was his nickname. So he had songs like Greatness in there, 1111. He had songs in Focus with Young Thug. He had songs in the album in which he was basically referencing Takeoff. and that was the main theme of Rocket Power, just his tribute to Takeoff and how he's been feeling after the death. Now, see, Offset on the other hand, now obviously they all had beef. Quavo and Offset obviously had beef, and Offset had ended up dropping the song "Jealousy" with Cardi B, and then he had dropped "Fan," and those songs really don't like tell you how he's going to attack the album in regards to, is he going to talk about Takeoff? I'm pretty sure he's going to talk about Takeoff, but is the whole album going to be strictly focused on Takeoff? Probably not. Versus with Quavo, Rocket Power was strictly on Takeoff and how he has been feeling since the death of Takeoff. First off, rest in peace to Takeoff. But I don't know how Offset is going to attack this album. But based off how he is attacking these albums in regards to the two singles that he did drop with "Fan" and "Jealousy" with Cardi B, it doesn't seem as though he is going to attack the album in regards to Takeoff being the main theme in the album. Now, do I feel as though it will be better than Rocket Power? I honestly feel like it's going to be better than Rocket Power due to the fact that he has so many features versus with Quavo, the only features that he did have was Future, Young Thug, and Huncho. Those are the only features that he did have. And Takeoff, obviously. He had 2 songs with Takeoff. And with that in mind, Offset has Don Toliver, Travis Scott, Lotto, Cardi B, Young Nudie, Mango Fool, who I forgot to say in the features thing. Like, he has all of these features in this album, so it's like he's gonna have more features. There's gonna be more voices, and they're one of the bigger names in the rap industry. So with that in mind, I feel like by default it should be better than Rocket Power. Now, do I think it's gonna be better than Father of Four? Because Father of Four has platinum songs on there. I don't think so. I don't think it's gonna be better than Father of Four, and I feel like that album had more so of a theme. Obviously, the lead song, the first song on the album is Father of Four, when he was talking about his kids, when he had his kids, how he was treating them and stuff like that, and the whole time frame on the age and what he was going through when he had each and every one of those kids. He had Cloud, Red Rum, Came a Long Way. So many songs on that album that ended up going platinum, and it was overall just a good album. And that album ended up selling 89K. I feel like this album will sell more. I honestly feel like it's going to sell more due to the fact that it has the features alone, and 2, the whole thing that has been going on with Quavo and Offset. I feel as though this album will sell more. Him and just Cardi B is just a very good duo. Been a very good duo for a very, 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 very long time. And obviously, when they come and drop songs, they're obviously going to be good songs. So he has all of that. So with that in mind, I think Offset is going to attack it in the regards of he's going to talk about Takeoff, but it's going to be very brief. He has 21 songs to do it, but based off the titles of these songs with On the River, Say My Name, Big Dog, I'm On, Night Vision, Dope Boy, it don't sound like he's going to really talk about Takeoff that much in the album. So I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't talk about it as much as Quavo, because obviously Quavo had more so of a relationship with Takeoff than Offset, it seems to me. But I wouldn't be surprised. And Offset has been doing his thing, not only just with music that he's finna drop this Friday, but he's also been on a podcast with Bobby Altoff. And if y'all ever get a chance to look at that podcast episode, bro, that podcast episode, it's funny because Offset was doing basically what Bobby Altoff is doing. Bobby Altoff is more like it's like quiet humor, and he was basically flipping everything on her, and it was just like funny. So he's been doing his thing. He was in beef with Nicki Minaj's husband. Like, it's been a whole lot of things. And he was just at the Colorado game when they was looking for Offset, and he was made a video, and he was getting off the plane to go to Colorado to watch Colorado play Colorado State. Like, he's been doing a whole lot of things. One thing, and Offset was on stream with Kai Cenat. Like, he's been very active these past couple of weeks, been doing something, whether that's preparing for the album, going to games, doing something with Kai Cenat, getting on a podcast with Bobby Altoff. He's been doing a lot. And you just got to commend him for what he has been doing. So I feel like this approach on this album is going to be briefly talking about Takeoff, but he's just going to talk. He's just going to talk his mess. He's gonna talk his shit on that for sure. He's going to talk, and that's one thing that I will say about that album. Like I said, do I think it would be better than Father of Four? I don't think it will be better than Father of Four, but I wouldn't be surprised. But it will sell more. I can guarantee you that. It will sell more than 89K. For sure. If I had to guess on the best feature, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Don Toliver. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Don Toliver, or it could be Cardi B, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Don Toliver. He has Young Nudy on the album, and Young Nudy had dropped Gumbo this year, and that album is a good album, but I don't think that he's going to be the best feature on the album. I honestly just going to think that it's going to be Don Toliver. I would say Travis Scott, but I feel like Travis Scott, he has a tendency on not doing good. I wouldn't say not doing good on features, but he doesn't do as well on features versus when he gets on his own song. He's one of those artists. Like, he can easily come hard on a feature, but he just decides not to until it's his own album. He's like, let me lock in. So with that in mind, I'm going to obviously say Don Toliver and probably Cardi B. So we'll see when that album drops on Friday how he is going to do on that album. So let's move on. So after nearly 3 decades, yes, I said it, 3 decades, an arrest has been made in the Tupac case. Keefe D was charged with the 1996 murder of Tupac. Keefe D is one of the last living witnesses that was in the car alongside the other suspects that had killed Tupac on the Las Vegas Strip nearly 3 decades ago. Keefe D has been on multiple interviews talking about the night of the crime. He even has a book called Compton Street Legends, where he talks about basically that night and what had ended up happening in the case. So this comes after 2 months where his wife's house was raided, and they ended up finding multiple computers, cell phone, a hard drive, and a Tupac magazine, and several .40 caliber bullets. And they also found a copy of Keefe D's Compton Street Legend memoir, where he admitted to being in the area and being the last known person to see Tupac before he was murdered. Now, keep in mind that he was one of the people that were in the car. He was in the car with his nephew, Orlando Anderson, who was in the back seat. He was with Terrence Bubba Up Brown. He was with DeAndre Smith, who are all dead. He's the only one that's dead, that is alive. Keefe D and Suge Knight are the only 2 people that are alive now. And this death happened September 7th, 1996. Now, like I had said, he has a book, Compton Street Legend, and he was also in multiple interviews. Now, I want y'all to listen to this interview. I want to see if I can find it. Let me see. I think I'm going to just play this part for you. Here we go.
Confessed to his involvement in the crime is behind bars.
Who shot Tupac?
to keep it for the code of the streets. It just came from the backseat, bro.
Filmmaker Mike George.
Okay, so he said in that interview, he said that he doesn't know who shot, but just know that it came in the backseat of a car. He was also on the interview with DJ Vlad where he was talking about the night of the crime, and he was also saying in his book that he was in the car when that happened. He passed the gun to somebody in the backseat who had ended up shooting and killing Tupac and grazed Suge Knight in the head. But he didn't tell who shot. Was it him? Was it someone in the back seat? He didn't tell that. It wasn't until he did get arrested for an unrelated charge back in 2009. It was a drug charge, and he was basically talking to the police, and they had agreed to the proffer agreement, which is basically me saying this. If I get arrested for a unrelated drug charge, right, and officers believe that I'm in a murder, robbery, or just whatever crime, they can be like, we can have the proffer agreement, and they can be like, hey, you tell me what happened that night, we agree to this proffer agreement, anything that you say in this statement cannot be used against you. So my whole thing with this whole Keefe D thing, the fact that he's getting on multiple interviews and he's stating all of these things that have happened in the book, which he was in the car, he gave the gun to someone in the backseat, and they had ended up shooting and killing Tupac. There's no way that you're going to do that, especially if you're a gangster. There's no way that you're just going to do that. So I feel as though when he had signed and he had agreed to that proffer agreement, I feel as though that he thought that it was for life. If he said something about this case, there was no possible way that even if he gets on interviews or even if he writes a book about it, the Compton Street Legends, he was not going to get charged with it because of the simple fact they can't use it against him. Because there's no way, especially if you're a gangster, and obviously if he didn't get arrested for that, I'm pretty sure he would still not even tell what had ended up happening. But I feel as though since the police caught him on an unrelated drug case and they agreed to the proffer agreement and was like, if you tell us about the murder, we can't use what you say as evidence against you. But I feel as though he thought of it as this is a for life thing. They can't use it against me. So with that in mind, he's getting on these interviews, talking about the case, bragging about the case, writing a whole book about the case. Little does he know it only lasts for that long. Once you're outside of the interrogation room, anything that you say, statements, your digital footprint, everything, your interviews, that's fair use. That's fair game for prosecutors to continue on to build up a case against you. But I feel as though Keefe D didn't know that. Because there's no way gangsters don't tell. Real gangsters don't tell. So the fact that he did end up just getting on these interviews just very comfortably and just talking about the case and talking about what's going on, does he not know that if you pass a gun to someone in the back seat of your car and they end up killing somebody, you're an accessory to a murder? It doesn't matter if you shoot the person or you don't shoot the person. It doesn't matter if you don't shoot the person. It just doesn't. The fact that you gave the gun to someone in the back seat of your car or whoever car that you were in, and they end up letting bullets out and they shoot Suge Knight and they kill Tupac, you're an accessory to that because that's your weapon. And they said that he's the shot caller. He was the shot caller for the Crips, and they charged him with open murder, meaning that the jury, and it's so confusing, the jury is basically going based off of statements that he said in his book, in his interviews, and is that enough to put him at the crime scene and put him as someone that potentially caused this murder? But it gives them the option, since it's a open murder crime, that's what they charged him with. They can charge him with first degree murder, second degree murder, third degree manslaughter. They can charge him with any one of those things. So it's kind of good for them because obviously they don't have enough evidence in regards to putting him at the scene except for statements. So unless they get like a weapon or unless they get something more than just relying on these statements, you can't just go out and charge him with first degree murder. You have to get more. So they charged him with open murder, so that way the juries, forever the trial does come, they can be like, okay, it may not be first degree murder, but it could be second degree murder. It could be third degree murder. It could be any one of those things. So he's not let off the hook just yet. And obviously, they tried getting Suge Knight to testify. And one thing about Suge Knight is not going to tell. He's a solid gangster. Keefy D is trying to say that Diddy, he said it in his book that Diddy had pulled him to the side and he wanted Tupac and Suge to be gone. He was basically scared of him. And it was a whole thing between Bad Boy Records on the East Coast and Death Row Records on the West Coast. They've been beefing for so long. So he wanted him gone. He wanted Tupac to be gone. And obviously when the whole thing with Tupac and Suge Knight and his nephew Orlando, they whooping on him, it was like basically a sense of retaliation. It was like they have to get him. So they had ended up driving by and they ended up shooting and killing Tupac and Suge. People will say it's so many theories, and it's kind of crazy too because I had ended up doing a project over this on the whole conspiracy of Tupac. People say that Suge Knight did it. Suge Knight set him up because Suge Knight is a shady person. It's so many things. People say that Biggie was a part of it because them two were going back and forth. And Keefy D is also saying that Puff Daddy, who's now Diddy, told him to do it because obviously in the song Hit 'Em Up, Tupac was basically saying F Bad Boy Records. So it was always just a beef between Bad Boy Records and Death Row Records. It's always been a beef since the beginning. And with that in mind, it was something was going to stir up. It was stirring up for so many years. And it came down to Keefy D and Orlando, his nephew, and just everybody that was in the car planning to take out Tupac and Suge Knight. And they had ended up taking out Tupac. One thing that I will say too, if Tupac is still alive, Tupac would most definitely have so much influence on these newer rappers in the generation now that we're living in, because the whole beef with Death Row Records and Bad Boy Records, that was real. What Tupac was living, that was real. Everything that he was saying in his songs was authentic. You have rappers now that really say things, say that they're in the streets, say that they're this gangbanger and all of these things, but they're really not. But Tupac was this gangster. He was that type of person. So I feel as though if Tupac was still alive, he wasn't just a rapper, he was an artist. So he would influence these rappers and these artists that do come out in regards to making their music authentic, making what they actually rap about. If you want to rap about something, make sure that you really live in it, because they'll actually check you about that. For sure, if Tupac was alive and Biggie was alive and the whole Bad Boy Records and the Death Row Records was still going, because obviously if all of these people were alive, it's sad to say it, someone was going to die, whether that was someone on Bad Boy Records or was it someone on Death Row Records. And sadly enough, it was someone on Death Row Records, and he was just one of the greatest artists, rappers of all time. Literally, he sold millions of just albums. Do you not know how hard that is? That was in the day of age in which there wasn't no social media. People were literally having to get CDs, vinyls of Tupac. Like, that's hard. You just couldn't go out and stream. And the fact that he was getting 75 million albums sold, just sold, and 44 million coming in the US, like, that's crazy for a time in which social media wasn't there. So people were just going out and buying CDs and buying vinyls. That just shows how good and how talented Tupac really was. it really showed how good Tupac really was as an artist, and if he was alive, how much of an influence he would have on the rappers and artists coming up. Not saying that he doesn't now, because obviously he's still recognized as one of the greats, if not the greatest rapper ever. But people will just look at him in a different standpoint now, since he will be alive longer for these rappers that do come up. But it's sad to say that it was either Bad Boy Records, someone was going to die on that end, or it was going to be Death Row Records, somebody's going to die on that end. And it's so sad that Tupac had ended up dying. Obviously, Keefe D is probably going to be charged with this murder, because I feel as though they're just trying to close the case at this point, because it's almost 30 years. It's 27 years. So with that in mind, I feel as though they're going to try and get Keefe D just to go based off his statements, because there's no way that he's just the only person that's alive from the whole incident that happened in 1996. And he's still talking about it. He's talking about it in his books. He's talking about it in the interview. He was there, and nothing is going to happen. So I honestly feel like with Keefe D, it was more so the fact that he ain't read the proffer agreement, and he just went on these interviews, and he went in his book, his Compton Street Legend book, and was talking about everything that happened and how it was strategically planned, on Diddy saying that Tupac dissed him or whatever, his nephew getting whooped by, Suge. So all of these things was going on. So maybe that was the whole cause. And the fact that he's just telling all of that, you're not a real gangster. Real gangsters don't speak. Suge hasn't spoke about anything, and I'm pretty sure Suge knows a whole lot of things. Suge knows what actually happens that night. He's not going to say anything, but he knows what happened. Keefe D is the only person that would know. And the fact that he's telling, I feel like it's just self-incriminating for him. So if he does end up getting found guilty, which he should be found guilty if he's saying that he passed the gun to someone in the back seat, that's obviously aiding to a murder. Especially in Nevada, you can be charged with that. So he aided in the murder. Point blank, period. And that's exactly what he had ended up doing. Pass it to someone. He was a shot caller. They found Tupac, found Suge, started busting bullets. And they sadly got Tupac. But if Tupac was alive, I can guarantee you his influence on the rap game will cause more artists to be more authentic in their music, and it'll be more pure. They'll look up to Tupac. And they'll look up to Biggie on Bad Boy Records. They'll look up to both of them. For sure. But I feel as though Keefe D will be charged with this murder, even though I feel like they don't have evidence in regards to like murder weapons and witnesses and stuff like that. They're trying to say that whoever shot had a big arm. His arm was thick. But if Keefe D was in the front seat, obviously they have to prove that he's there. And I don't feel as though Keefe D shot. And everyone that was in the car except for him died. So it's like, how much are you really going to take out of that? The only thing that you really can take is the self-incrimination. Just him being dumb and him being stupid, thinking that the proffer deal is simply for life when it's only for that one day. After you're done for that one day talking to the police, anything that you do, use interviews, talking about it in your book, it's fair game. Just like when you post something on social media. When you post something on social media, it's something called a digital footprint. That digital footprint can follow you. So when you get big, or when jobs just look at you and they look at your digital footprint, they look at what you post. You could post something that shouldn't be on Instagram, and they see that, and they're going to have a perception on how you are or what you have done. You may say that you've never smoked not a day in your life, but you have an Instagram post that you posted weeks ago that someone can dig up of you smoking. It's a digital footprint. So with Keefy D continuing to get on interviews with DJ Vlad and other interviews, making books, talking about the night of the crime. If you're real gangsters stick to the code and keep it silent all the way until they die. But the fact that there's no way that you can just go and just get on these interviews without you thinking that you're safe in some way, shape, or form. So the fact that he is just proves that he must not have read what that proffer agreement was. And he's just thinking that he's safe for life, which in actuality he's not. So since he's charged with the open murder, now he can be charged with first-degree murder, second-degree murder, third-degree. Like, it's so many things that he could be charged for. And since he admitted in his book, Compton Street Legend, that he passed a gun to someone in the backseat of the car but didn't say who, since it's his gun and he passed it, he will for sure be getting charged with something. And since it's been almost 30 years since the death of Tupac, they're trying to get this case closed. For sure. So with that, let's move on to just one last topic. And then we're going to get out of here. You feel what I'm saying? So, earlier in my first couple of podcasts that I ever made, I talked about the Y&W Melly case, and Y&W Melly and Y&W Bortland have now been arrested with witness tampering of the charge with the murder following a home raid by law enforcement on Monday evening in Miami, Florida. Now, Y&W Melly was already in jail. Y&W Bortland was not in jail. And the crazy thing about it, Y&W Melly was trying to get bail. He ended up getting a mistrial for the murder because I feel as though they didn't have enough evidence. They couldn't prove that he was in the car at the time of the murder. They just couldn't. And he has a good defense attorney, and the prosecutors really wasn't doing anything. They really tried at first to use the lyrics from Murder on My Mind, and they tried to use testimonies from different people, but they didn't really tell on Y&W Melly actually saying that he was going to be there, and his phone where it had picked up, he was leaving at the time of the crime, but they just couldn't actually prove that he shot. They said that the shot did come from where he was sitting at, but they couldn't prove where he was in the car. And like I said in that podcast, Y&W Melly could get off, but if he gets off, Y&W Bortland is going to get charged for murder. Y&W Bortland is completely fried no matter what. Y&W Melly is the only one that has a chance in the case. He can either beat the case and Y&W Bortland gets charged with everything. They can both be charged with everything. That's just the simple fact on what could end up happening. But now, since they done both got arrested for witness tampering, now it's like, okay, Y&W Melly and Bortland are now going to be done because who knows what could have happened. He could tell them not say anything. Obviously, they wasn't saying anything in the case. Everybody that they had brought up, and I think they had brought up like 27 people. Brought up so many people to talk about the case, and they didn't say nothing. They didn't snitch. They didn't tell on Y&W Melly at all. So now that he's charged with another witness tampering charge, he got charged with that. It's just, now you're done. You're just done. He got the mistrial. He tried getting bail. He got denied bail. And now since he got charged with the witness tampering, I feel as though when they get put to trial, both of them, I just feel like Y&W Melly's not getting out. And I honestly thought that he was going to get out. I thought up until this happened. Once this happened, even though that the trial, it was more people that said that Y&W Melly was guilty versus not guilty, this is like the cherry on top because it's witness tampering. So now, when they bring this in court, 9 times out of 10, he's going to be found guilty on the murder of Y&W Juvie and Y&W Sack Jackson. He just is, because he got the witness tampering. So, I don't know how that's gonna go. It doesn't look too good for YNW Melly or YNW Borland. YNW Melly did have a good, promising career with Murder on My Mind, Blue Balenciagas, Mixed Personality, Suicidal, so many songs that he did have, Mama Cry, Butter Pecan, so many songs that YNW Melly did have, and it's kind of sad just seeing another rapper in jail. You already have him, you have Thug, Lucci, you just have so many of them. Pooh Shiesty, K-Flock, so many artists. Tay-K when he was blowing up back in the day. So many of them. So he's just going to be one of those other artists that are probably going to be gone. He's probably going to be gone, not getting out. Polo G's in jail. All these artists are in jail that are 9 times out of 10 not going to get out. So it'll be interesting how this case is going to pan out, but it doesn't look too good. Doesn't look too good. So with that in mind, that is the end of this podcast episode, the 100 video special for y'all. I really appreciate each and every one of y'all for the support. If y'all have made it to the end of the video, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, comment, turn on post notifications so you get the latest updates on when I post a real spill or a podcast episode. Also, be sure to follow the Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at The Truth Comes to Light Podcast. I love each and every one of y'all. We're going to keep on staying consistent with the podcast. I'm telling y'all, this will eventually go. I want y'all to have a voice just like I have a voice. Keep that in mind. So with that, I love y'all. Y'all have a nice rest of y'all night.